Uh-oh. Well, let's hope we make it down the mountain.
Stay with Merrill, I told Fix, and scooted around the werewolf's flanks, heading up the hill toward the stone table. The sudden wind slashed at me, slamming me back down to earth, and tore the unraveling from my hands. I looked up to see Aurora take a bit of a pop from the air with casual, then back up. Rose into place in a ring.
Says it's the end of time, and the Mississippi River, she's a going dry. The interest is up and the stock market's down, and you're only getting mugged if you go downtown. I live back in the woods, you see, a woman and the kids and the dogs and me. Got a shotgun, a rifle, and a four-wheel drive, and a country boy can survive. Country folks can survive. I can plow a field all day long. I can catch catfish from dusk till dawn. Make our own whiskey and our own smoke too. Ain't too many things these old boys can't do.
You good?
We grow good old tomatoes and homemade wine, and country boy can survive. Country folks can survive. Because you can't starve us out and you can't make us run. Those Wisconsin boys raised on shotguns. We say grace, we say ma'am. If you ain't into that, we don't give a damn.
Like I said, I'm gonna join you in a church group. Yeah, no shit. I mean, really, I'm gonna look this place up and see what I can do. That was above and beyond. They're having their once annual turkey shoot. So there's a bunch of teenagers with guns, and they just let a stranger show up and I mean, there were guns everywhere. I mean, there were guns sitting next to me. I could have reached out, done anything. These people don't know me from Jack. I show up cold, shivering, they put me by the fire, try and feed me everything they have. Drive up the side of a mountain for 30 minutes and try and fucking drag some stranger's car off a cliff. I mean... Remember, I still have to go get a pie. The day has just begun.
We'd gotten involved, and on our first date, she wound up lying naked on the ground in a thunderstorm, while lightning cooked a toad-like beef into gooey bits. After that, she parlayed a couple of encounters with things from my cases into a widespread syndicated column. A couple of years later, she wound up following me into a nest of vampires with a big to-do. He hadn't told me it was wanted. Whatever it was important enough to covertly drag the Vatican staff all the way to Chicago. Maybe it was important enough to kill a nosy wizard over it, too. An investigation is underway, and I'm giving the police department my full cooperation. But, how to phrase this politely, he frowned. History is an able teacher. Mostly movies now, Padre. You may not have heard, but the whole Al Capone thing has been over for a while. Perhaps, he said. Perhaps not. I simply seek to do everything within my power to recover the stolen article. That includes involving an independent and discreet investigator. Aha! So he didn't trust the police and wanted me to work for him on the sly. That's why we were meeting at a cheap motel, rather than wherever he was really staying. What do you want me to find for you? A relic, he said. A what? An artifact, Mr. Dresden. An antique possessed by the church for several centuries. Oh, that, I said. Yes. The article is fragile and of great age, and we believe that it is not being adequately preserved. It is imperative that we recover it as quickly as possible. Eventually stopped pounding quite so loudly. I miss you, I said finally. So does your editor. She called me a couple of... I toyed with the Coke can, frowning down at it. Just with him, I think. I don't know. She's quitting her job? Guess so. We're gonna talk, I think. She said so? Said she'd get in touch and we'd talk. Murphy's eyes narrowed and she said, "Doing? Thanks." She shrugged. "I expect you to tell me if it turns into something I should know." "Okay," I said, staring at her profile. Murphy had done something I knew she didn't do very often. She'd extended her trust. I'd expected her to threaten and demand. I could have handled that. This was almost worse. Guilt gnawed on my insides. I'd agreed not to divulge anything, but I hated doing that to Murphy. She'd gone out on a limb for me too many times. But what if I didn't tell her anything? What if I just pointed her toward information she'd find sooner or later in any case? Look, Murph, I specifically agreed to confidentiality for this client. But if I were going to talk to you, I'd tell you to check out the murder of a Frenchman named LaRoche with Interpol. Big church, a city landmark. If there's anything you like in the way of Gothic architecture, you can find it somewhere on St. Mary's. We parked near the back of the cathedral and went to the delivery entrance, a plain oak door framed by lovingly tended rose vines. Michael knocked at the door and I heard the sound of multiple bolts being undone.